Okay, here we go. Okay, hello, and good week to everyone. Um, we are here as it were, the Melave Malka Shir and Sipurey Baal Shem, Sichos Haran, a little bit about um, the Parsha. It's quite an amazing Parsha. I mean, whereas the last Parsha, you had it that Am Yisrael was, last Parsha finished on in such tension in the precipice of the ultimate disaster. Um, Whereas Am Yisrael, basically in the form of the Shvatim, has no way out. They failed in everything, and the ruler of Egypt has basically put the put them in a conundrum that basically there's no way out. That's Enef Am Yisrael Kaviyachol. So in the beginning of the Pasha of this week, um, Yehuda steps to the forefront. And he tells Yosef, you know, allow me to speak, say something in your ear. He tells him the whole story of how it happened. And he says that he can't let, he can't go to Eretz Canaan without Binyamin. He says, because, he can't see what the effect on Yaakov Avinu is going to be. So, so he offers to be a slave instead of Binyamin. And that's the point where Yosef um, reveals himself to his brothers. Nelson writes about it that when Yehuda represents Yehudim, he represents the Jews, he represents Am Yisrael. And he's coming to the tzaddik, and he begs forgiveness for the lack of emunas tzaddikim, because what they need, what every single Jew needs, he needs an eitzah, he needs an advice, how to handle himself in the particular station of his life. What is he doing? What he's not doing? How should he go forward? All the confusions, all the pitfalls, all the mistakes that people do are a result of bad advice, bad calculations. Something that Rabbeinu is called chalukas ha'etzah, the division of one's advice. In other words, you have a possibility here and you have a possibility there, and you don't know which way to go. Now, this is the antithesis of what an eitzah is supposed to be. Advice is not supposed to be an offering of options. When I ask somebody for advice, if he tells me you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, and you can do this, that's not advice. Thank you very much. I need one option that will lead me to where I need to get. This is when Am Yisrael gets together with the tzaddik, and what they get from him is they get the eitzah. When Am Yisrael comes to the tzaddik and they humble themselves before him, and they beg his forgiveness for not believing in him, because Yosef told him, "You all have to come to me." When he was 17 years old, he was in Eretz Israel. He told him, "You all have to bow down to me. You have to receive from me." Even Yaakov has to receive from him. Uh, and they decided, who does he think he is? What, he thinks he's a king or whatever it is. And the whole thing turned around to the point where now they come to the realization that he was right all along. And the whole rigmarole of going around that they had to go through was all a result of lack of emunas tzaddikim, emunah in the tzaddik. That's it. Because from the tzaddik you get the eitzah, you get the eitzah amitis, you get the true eitzah. Because we all find ourselves, with all kind of challenges in our lives. And sometimes we think we know what we're supposed to do, but we don't really, because because the sitra achra, because the defilement comes up with its own advice. And the advice that you get from people is fraught with small-mindedness, with misguided goals, with you need a tzaddik that can give you an eitzah, that can bring you what do I need to do at this particular point in my life? What choice do I need to make in order to get out of this situation and get towards my goal? This is it. Another eitzah, another eitzah, another eitzah. Because a good advice is a deliverance. Bad advice is pitfall. That's why we say in Myra and we daven, "V'takneinu be'eitzah toivah milfanecha," and fix us with a good advice before you, "V'oshienu meheira el man shmecha," and deliver us quickly for your name's sake. The minute you get a proper advice, this is your deliverance. That's your way out. So, this is about this week's parsha. Let's get to see the story of Baal Shemtov for this week. And we're talking about the daughter of the Baal Shem HaKodesh, Ras Odol. She had two sons, Reb Baruch of Mezhibos, the famous Reb Baruch, the Rebbe Reb Baruch, and the Degel Machne Ephraim, Rabbi Ephraim of Sadikov, and a daughter by the name of Fega. Ras Fega, as we know later, she is Rabbeinu's mother. She had a son that's called Rabbi Yisrael Mes, Rabbi Yisrael the deceased, Rabbi Yisrael the dead. How does a person being called Rabbi Yisrael the dead? Because what the Mai says was as follows: Ras Fega, who was the granddaughter of Baal Shem Tov, she was the daughter of the tzaddikim Ras Odol, as I said before. And after her marriage, she didn't have any children. So she used to go to the Baal Shem Tov's Zion again and again and again. And she asked the Baal Shem Tov, please, to give her, to grant her a ben zachar, a male boy. Now, both her brothers, who were, a couple of the biggest tzaddikim of the Hasidic movement of all time, called Ras Fega, they called her Fega the prophetess. She had a Ruach HaKodesh. So the Baal Shem Tov promised her. After the passing of the Baal Shem Tov, she had a son, and they called him Israel, after the name of his grandfather, Yisrael Baal Shem Tov. And when the child was 2 years old, lo aleinu v'lo aleichem, he became sick, and he died, Rachman Litzlan. So his mother, Ras Fega, what did she do? She took the dead child in her arms, and she went out to the Tzion of Baal Shem HaKodesh. and she put him down on the grave of the Baal Shemtov, of her grandfather. And she said, Grandpa, I mean, is this the son that you promised me? And she left the dead child on the grave of the Baal Shem Tov and went home. Afterwards, some people came, to daven by the Tzion, the Baal Shem HaKodesh, and they saw a child alive, sitting down and crying. Yeah. And they didn't know, they had no idea whose child it was. Where he came from. They came, when they went back to town, they took the child with them, and they announced that they found him by the care of the Baal Shem Tov. Until his mother found out. And she went and she took the child, alive and healthy. After that particular episode, the Baal Shem Tov has appeared to Ras Fega, and he told him, if you would have come, just you alone, to my Tzion, Kodesh Baruch Hu will also help us. But to me, you just cause a great deal of trouble, of work, because the neshama of this child was already mixed up with millions of other neshamas, and I couldn't find him. It was a very big toil to find a different neshama instead of his. And I found a neshama of a dead person, and I brought it back to the body of the child. And the child grew up, and his face were like palish green, like a face of a dead person. So used to call him Rabbi Yisrael Mess. That's why they call him that. Whenever it is that you learn about the Baal Shem Tov, about the tzaddikim, the power to bring dead people back to life is something that they can do as a matter of course. There is a amaze in the Gemara about one of the 10 of Aseres Harugei Malchus, the 10 martyrs. Amongst them is Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel Kohen Gadol, and I'm not sure it was who exactly was the tunnel that this story is about, but the Roman executioner came to him and took him and put him to a fire. He was supposed to light up, and burn him up alive. So he tried to light up the fire, and it just wouldn't light. The fire would not catch. And he tried this, and he tried that, and he, poured oil, I don't know, whatever it is that they, all the flammable materials that they had in that time, whatever it is that they had, and it still wouldn't catch fire. So the Roman executioner actually asked the Tana, can you tell me what's going on here? What is going on? Why is the fire not catching? So the Tana said the reason why it's not catching fire is because I'm not sure that I'm supposed to be burnt alive. As long as I don't know what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, the fire is not going to catch up. So the executioner asked him, what am I going to do? So he said, give me some time. I'm not sure how long he asked him, said an hour or two or whatever. I'll find out what's supposed to be, what is, and you come back and I'll tell you. And that time passed, and the executioner came back to him, and the Tana said, "Yeah, Mishamayim, they said it. I'm supposed to be executed. I'm supposed to die, by fire. You can go ahead and you can take me, and this time the fire will burn." So the executioner was told they're supposed to put like fire retardant uh, material, soaked material on his heart and vital organs to make sure that he will suffer longer from the fire and wouldn't just die off. So he took him and he lit up the fire. And the executioner said to the Tana, if I remove those retardant wet materials so that your neshama can leave your body quicker, and you wouldn't suffer so much, will you promise me a part in the world to come? And he told him yes. So he removed those fire retardant materials, and immediately, the Tana caught fire, and the executioner jumped into the fire and died together with the Tana. I believe that Rebbe said about this particular thing, there was another thing also. Rebbe, I think, was later. Anyhow, he said that Yesh Koina Alom B'Sha'achat somebody. I think it's about this particular story, but that's not the issue. The issue is tzaddikim have a power, of life and death. In other words, they can bring back somebody from death. And it's not just, Baal Shemtov. Lesser people did that. So why don't they always do it? Because tzaddikim, especially those in the level that are able to bring back to life a dead person, a deceased, they only do whatever it is HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. So as long as the Tana was not sure that he was supposed to die, Al Kiddush Hashem, so the Tana, the executioner, wasn't able to light up this auto de fe, whatever it is that's called. The minute that he found out, Mishamayim, that he's supposed to die, Al Kiddush Hashem. This is, by the way, as an atonement for the 10 Shvatim, for the 10 brothers that sold Yosef, involved in this week's parsha. So, okay. So the question is like, why didn't the Tana just run away, escape? He gave him 2 hours, whatever it is, to ask him, escape. Because the Tana knew that if it is his time, that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from him. It doesn't matter if the executioner is going to kill him, or a snake is going to bite him, or something else would happen to him. It doesn't make a difference. This is what the HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. This is what the HaKadosh Baruch Hu decreed. And obviously, Sarah, the 10 Harugei Malchus are of the highest level of the old martyrs, they died on such gruesome deaths that bring up so many questions. Why such a Rebbe Akiva, those, why? And their deaths was specific, for a specific purpose, to raise these questions, because there are neshamas that are lost in a void that is called Chalal Panei, that there's no way that anybody can get in there and ever get out again. So these 10 tzaddikim went up, they passed away in a death that raises all these absolutely unfathomable questions. These are questions from the Chalal Panei. So they can get into Chalal Panei and retrieve the neshamas that were lost in there. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about the tzaddik. So Ad Kan is the amaze of the Baal Shem HaKadosh. Now let's take a quick look at Likute, at Sichos Haran. Let's see what Rabbeinu has to say to us this week. All right. And just a second, here we go. We'll learn Sicha 296. This is Reish Tzadik Rav. One of the most elemental Breslov tenet. B'shas tefillah, in the time of davening, tzrichen lekasher atzmoi latzadikim shebado. You have to connect yourself to the tzaddikim in a generation. It is said in Siman Beis and Siman Tes and Likutei Moharan, the first chelik, and other places. That's why Rabbeinu warned, and us the people that before tefillah, he says, I mekasher myself, I connect myself to all the tzaddikim in our generation. My son, Avromi, has an amazing story, an absolutely amazing story about a tzaddik that lived in our lifetime, the Ribnitzer Rebbe, that a person went to Kever Shimon HaTzadik and found there, Tikkun HaKloli. So in the beginning, he says, told the two tzaddikim in generation, and all two tzaddikim of all the generations, especially to Rabbeinu HaKodesh Rav Nachum ben Fege. Now, this person was not a Breslover. So he said, I don't want to connect myself to Breslover, so who should I connect myself to? The amaze came out is that this man later on went to the Ribnitzer Rebbe, and the Ribnitzer Rebbe looked at him and said, where do I know you from? So I said, I have no idea where I know you from. So he said, haven't we met before? What happened was, in the Kever Shimon HaTzadik, the person decided that the person the tzaddik he wants to connect to, was the Ribnitzer Rebbe. So he said, the Makasha Atzmi b'Tfilosi told the tzaddikim, the two tzaddikim generation, and especially to the Ribnitzer Rebbe. The Ribnitzer Rebbe, when he told the Ribnitzer Rebbe, I don't recall anything except this particular episode when I was in the Kever Shimon HaTzadik, and I said that I'm Makasha myself to you. So the Ribnitzer Rebbe said, yeah, that's it. This is where I know you from. You're talking about tzaddik in our lifetime. Ribnitzer Rebbe also was Mechayim Eisim. He actually revived a dead baby. It's a story all its own. I don't want to take the shiur longer than it's supposed to be. So this is what my son said. So imagine if a tzaddik in this generation, previous generation, was cognizant of the fact that somebody thousands of miles away connected himself in his tefillah to him, and he knew him and he recognized him. Just imagine what is happening when we are connecting ourselves before we daven to Rabbeinu HaKadosh Rabbi Nachum ben Fege. that Rabbeinu knows, Rabbeinu feels, Rabbeinu knows you. He'll take care of you. You can daven with this host. You can learn with this host. This is what needs to be done. Kodesh Baruch Hu B'ezrat Hashem will be mezakeh us to serve Kodesh Baruch Hu with everything we have. Always to connect ourselves to true tzaddikim in a generation, in a previous generation, and B'ezrat Hashem, b'zchut them, will be zocher to Geula Shlema. Now, Monday night, as you know, and Tuesday and Monday night is the Yotzat of Nosen, and there's not enough time. This shira is just Sipurey Baal Shemtov and Sichos Haran, but Reb Nosen is the gateway to Rabbeinu is Reb Nosen. So I wish we had another shir, before, but we probably won't. But anyhow, Sichos Haran this week, the Sichos of Reb Nosen. Without him, we would have absolutely nothing left from Rabbeinu. Just one little story we spoke about, I think it was in Thursday last year, that the Tirovetz Magid was one of the first Talmidim of Rabbeinu. He was a Talmid of the Magids of Mzrich, and he was a friend of Nochem Chernobyl. They were best friends, and they would travel to one another once a year. This one went to him, and this one went to him. And the Baal Tanya asked from him for askama for the Siddur Baal Tanya, and he was over 70, I don't know, 70, 80, I'm not sure, when Rabbeinu was 19. And he realized who Rabbeinu was, and he became a Talmud, became a chassid of Rabbeinu. It was mevatel him completely. So once he said, when Rabbeinu said Torah, now the Tirovetz Magid was an unbelievable, immense tzaddik, obviously. And he was more the only tzaddikim generation to realize who Rabbeinu was. And he said when Rabbeinu was saying the Torah, and he said, I saw fire coming out of Rabbeinu's mouth. I saw it. He wasn't a child. He wasn't some kind of simpleton, somebody with dinyonis. It's Tirovetz Magid. He saw fire come out of Rabbeinu's mouth. He heard the Torah, and he said, "This is higher than Tikkun Ezar, which is the highest Seilas Torah there are. There's no higher revelation than this." He said, "The Kutam is higher than Tikkun Ezar." And he said in Motzi Yontiv, I think it was Motzi Yontiv, he sees a young man running with a sheaf of papers in his hands. It was Reb Nosen. So he says, "Hey, young man, come over here and show me." And he looked at the papers. This is when Reb Nosen wrote what he remembered, as he remembered Rabbeinu's Torah. And he looked at it, and he was astounded. He said, that I saw fire coming off Rabbeinu's mouth is not such a surprise. He says, I saw the fire on the paper. Who was able to put fire on paper to transfer the Likutei Moharan, the Torah of Rabbeinu, with such faithfulness that the fire is on, for those who have the eyes to see it, the fire is on the paper. That's Reb Nosen. B'ezrat Hashem, Schusat again Aleinu, should have a gewaldige week, B'schus Reb Nosen, and B'ezrat Hashem, a very healthy winter, and a blessed winter, B'ezrat Hashem, Geula Shlema, V'yesh Mashiach Tzidkenu, B'ezrat Hashem, B'mehera V'aminu Amen. Shkoyach, and thank you so much.